Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood. I'm here with another independent media person, Amanda Cummings. Amanda, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. The thing I like about doing the independent media is so many people recommend. They're like, oh, you should interview this person or that person. And so I was put in touch with you, and you have a show called Actify Chat. And so why don't we, but the thing I love asking, because it's a question that people ask me, so I like asking it of other independent media folks, what made you decide to start doing these shows and get involved? Had you been involved for a long time, or did something shift that made you decide to want to do it?
No, I haven't actually been involved that long, but what did motivate me is that seems to be a lack of diverse voices, especially, I guess, a lack of independent voices that are progressive in nature. It's sorely needed in our country, at least in the U.S., and I'm just happy to actually get the opportunity to do this. I'm not by myself. I'm actually part of a larger organization that's called Actify Press, and they do like a lot more publishing books, progressive-leaning books, and things like that. And so I'm a part of that organization.
So did you start out as like a journalist or a writer and then decided to do the podcast and the video, or?
Well, I started out with another organization that was kind of more of my own thing. And then they actually approached me and asked me to kind of host their program for them for chat. But I'm not a journalist. I'm actually a statistician, a trained statistician. So this is definitely a new venture for me as far as just media-wise.
No, it's so funny because I think many of us all kind of, I mean, some people I've talked to, were in journalism or media, but a lot of us, like myself and Jimmy Dore, we were just comedians that decided we were just sort of pissed off and wanted to talk about stuff. And, he'd been doing his for several years, and I was on his show right after the election, and he was like, you should do this, Graham. You have a lot to say. And I was like, all right, fine. And then I'm watching, when I see the landscape of the corporate media, and as you say, progressive, there's no, Chris Hedges isn't being interviewed on MSNBC or anything like that. And the people that were progressive that were working in the mainstream media were fired or pushed out or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that kind of feeds into this. I guess everybody maybe you've heard of this, obviously, probably the Overton window, where it's gotten so shifted to the right that now it's just either center right, which is on the mainstream media, or very right wing, and there's nothing representing progressive voices or even liberal voices for that matter. It's very, I hate to say it, but like even the Democratic voices that you see on these programs are, in fact, I would call them Republicans.
Oh.
I would definitely call them right, on the right, center right. I would not call them at all progressive.
Yeah, they're not left at all. I mean, it's their. I mean, the Democratic Party is almost just the majority of them. Some of them are progressive, but the majority of them are they're just pro-choice Republicans at best.
Right. Yeah, and I think Nancy Pelosi was recently. Basically, what was she? She was propping up a candidate that is not pro-choice at all.
And he's anti-gay rights.
How right-wing can a party go?
I know.
Where does it end?
It's fantastic. It's fascinating to me, the audacity with which they do that. She's all resist Trump, and then just backs this person who is openly against abortion. This candidate's a man openly against LGBT rights, and then she can just then have the nerve to go, oh yeah, I'm fighting for your liberal values. And just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's just one party. It's one party, and it's a gradation within that party. And it's arguably the corporatist party. They are there for corporations, not for people.
Right.
And then you've got extreme right-wing people that say, we're here for people, but we're incredibly racist and hateful, so we only want to represent, white nationalists.
Yeah, they've been underrepresented for so long. They need a voice. White nationalists. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. What hope, if any, do you have with the Democratic Party?
I don't have much hope for them. I really think that we need a viable alternative. Whether it's, the People's Party, whether it's Democratic Socialist or something along those lines. I just think the Democratic Party is just too far to the right at this point. It's just a matter of time when people that align themselves with Democratic Party recognize that recognize that, hey, I'm progressive, I'm liberal, and I'm tired of voting or supporting a candidate that's the lesser of two evils. Why shouldn't we as a nation expect better than that? And we should. We should expect that. We prop ourselves to high standards. We should prop our politicians to high standards and finally get them to represent us. Mm-hmm. And the Democratic Party, I think, is just too far gone. They may end up again. And then we have two parties that's actually progressive, and then we've got Democrat Republicans.
Yeah,
I'm just going to be gone.
Well, the thing I'm kind of almost hoping for, and let me know what you think about this. I feel as though the only thing that's really going to get a major third party, either the creation of one or, as you say, the Democratic Socialists or the Green Party or whomever, is if some big name, obviously Bernie, but like if Tulsi Gabbard or somebody like that just said, I'm done with the Democrats and I'm pulling all my people and resources and funding all the way over to whatever, Democratic Socialists or Green. Do you think that's realistic?
I don't know if that's realistic. I would hope that would be the case. But they've got a lot of pressure on them from, I guess, whom they would assume to be their allies in the fight against Trump and Trumpism, which would be the Democratic Party. But then they don't represent, I guess, like Tulsi Gabbard's perspective of like ending all these wars, things like that. They're not interested in doing that. And they may talk like they are, and they may tell her in the background, hey, we are interested in doing this. We just have to focus on Trump first. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, what are you focusing on? Because isn't that part of Trumpism? He said one thing, but he's actually doing it. He's increased the wars. We're in 8 interventions in wars at this point. Nothing has decreased. And I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around this.
Well, let's not forget
but yeah, as far as like getting either Bernie Sanders or Tulsi Gabbard to actually dim exit, I guess, would be challenging. But I think if maybe they get enough support, enough people to call and write in and to just reach out to them and saying, hey, the Democratic Party is no longer representing us, maybe that would help motivate them to exit.
Yeah, and I think what needs to be, in my opinion, what needs to be pointed out is the stuff like, yes, Trump is involved in 8 wars, but there were 5 Democrats, along with a bunch of Republicans, that voted to give him $80 billion extra in the fall. Like, that, to me, is such an egregious crime. And now there's a bunch of them who are looking to deregulate Dodd-Frank. I mean, it's like at every turn, they're all on their Twitter feeds or on CNN or whatever, resist Trump, we got to resist Trump. And then, meanwhile, they're just backing, supporting, voting for total Trump right-wing policy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen excuses going, well, those Democrats, they're from the southern states or from the red states, so it's excusable. That's what I've seen from people that align themselves with Democrats. And I'm like, why is that excusable? Because they're the ones that are voting alongside Trump. They're the ones that are basically perpetuating this, or helping, I guess, perpetuate it. And it is not okay. Like Doug Jones, the first thing he did was vote with Trump when he got into office. And everybody's like, oh, black women, they're the ones that got him into office. Well, what is he doing for black women? voting with Trump. Well, not a lot of black women support Trump. I don't know if he knows that.
Yeah, well, that's just such classic Democratic, that's why I was so, like, very leery of the Doug Jones victory, because I'm like, he's pretty centrist, and he barely beat a pedophile. I mean, barely. And then the minute he gets in there, he's just automatically goes to the corporate voting. And like, let's not forget that, like, it was Liz Warren, Kamala Harris, Tim Kaine, Nancy Pelosi, and one of those, and maybe Feinstein, that voted for the $80 billion. So it wasn't like a bunch of Southern red state Democrats. I mean, these are like the bluest of the blues giving Trump an extra $80 billion. Not the aforementioned Nancy Pelosi. So I get so frustrated with, and I have many neoliberal friends here. I live in Los Angeles, so most people in show business are a version, some type of left neoliberal, and good friends of mine, people I like, respect, trust, that I think are intelligent, say these type of, well, we got to stop Trump. And it's just like, well, Trump didn't get us into 8 wars. Obama took us from 2 wars to 7. So, like, let that guy, Obama, who I voted for twice, and I have to admit that I did not pay attention enough during him, and that's on me. That's on me, and I'm, like, really mad at myself for that. And I can't do that anymore. And so when I hear people giving me the lesser of two evils thing, I'm just like, yeah, man, I heard that for 8 years of Bush, when Bush was in office. Anyone but Bush. Just stop Bush. And I can't do that again.
No, it's not enough. I mean, I think there was a report out saying that, or from MIT actually, saying that the majority of people in the country basically live in third world country conditions. Why is that acceptable? Because this is what those policies of the lesser of two evils, or even the evils of two evils, have gotten us. It has degraded our country. It really has. And a lot of people are suffering, yet we're going in, it's cognitive dissonance, right? We're going, well, why we need to expect better than that. We should expect better than that. And I'm just tired of that bullshit argument of, well, it's better than this. No, it should be the best of this. It should be best. It should be representing us and what I want. Otherwise, I'm not going to vote. And I hate to say that, but I didn't vote in the last election because I didn't want to vote for Clinton and I didn't want to vote for Trump. And I'm like, this is not worth my time. Neither of them worked to get my vote. So I am not going to waste my time with this. So I did not vote for them. And that's okay. And people have to accept that because that's just how the reality of the situation is.
Well, yeah, it's the arrogance of the Democratic Party, of both parties, to not campaign. I mean, literally, and, Hillary Clinton did not campaign in various states. and then it's Jill Stein's fault or it's Burn Bro's fault or whatever, and they just can't. Even people that would get mad, like, oh, well, you should have voted. So everyone should vote. I was like, wow, I always vote, but I understand your view of you gave me nothing. You gave me there's no what is there? Nobody campaigns, and everybody just assumes everyone's voting lesser of two evils. People that voted for Trump felt the same. Many Trump supporters felt like, oh, I'm just voting for the lesser of two evils because they think the Clintons are very evil, which they're not wrong, and. Each person, or many, not all, but many of the people that voted for Trump or voted for Clinton as the lesser of two evils just sort of looked the other way with the evils of the person they voted for and focused more on the evils of the other one. And that's such a problem that our system is so broken. Like, wouldn't it be amazing if we lived in a country where you said, I'd be happy if either one of these candidates became president, but I just like this one a little bit more. That
would be remarkable. But, it's a tactic. It's very easy for us to fight among ourselves while they fuck us over. And that's exactly kind of how they're going to maintain it. And it's very easy for us to get into these, like, primal instincts of just fighting. And as you were saying, like, we were voting for the lesser of two evils while focusing on the primary evil, the other candidate. And that was intentional.
Yes.
That was by design. And I would love to have the opportunity to actually vote for somebody that I really, really, really and strongly believed in. Like, I believed in Obama the first time, and I voted him for the first time and the second time. I voted for him the second time thinking like, oh, well, he'll get better because he won't have the pressures of the Republican or try, to do the compromise thing. It's his last term. He'll finally legalize marijuana and, hopefully roll back, get some people, do some prison reform. No. I mean, no.
Nope.
And it was so disappointing. So disappointing.
So, how do we address this? How do we get people to largely see that the fighting amongst ourselves, the red state, blue state, liberal conservative, Fox versus MSNBC, whatever, like black, white, male, female, whatever the fight of the day they're trying to get us to get bent out of shape about, how do we get people to get past that and to realize that, 80% of this country is close to poverty. 50 million people are living in poverty. As you said, there's that report that they're living in third world country. It's not just Flint, Michigan. There's a lot of communities that have contaminated water. There's no jobs. I mean, there's like, you have to do a GoFundMe to get a knee surgery paid for, like on and on and on. The student debt bubble, like it just keeps going. Livable wage, all of that stuff. So how do we get people to, obviously we each do our shows and stuff like that, but what do you see is some short and long-term tactics, strategies to get people to wake up to this fact?
Well, as you said, I think just continuing to just have conversations with people does actually help, because when I live in a very red state, and pretty much everybody around me identifies themselves as conservative, yet we agree on about 80% of the things. We want healthcare for everybody. And so if you just focus on what we all are aiming, what our aim is, what our goals are, because we largely agree with each other a lot of the time. And it's just these media sources or even our politicians that are trying to have us fight against each other. And so when I actually have these conversations with conservatives, people are like, oh, I never thought about that. Like, hey, do you want this? Do you want people to have health care? And they're like, yeah, I have no problem with that. And I'm like, okay, do you want people, to have Medicare for all, for instance? And I, break it down for them to tell them what it is, how it's funded, and things like that. And they're like, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Right now, I've got medical bills out the wazoo, and I can't afford that. Everybody does. Well, so many people do. And so if you just focus on them, that we have a lot more in common than they even realized. That's been, I guess, my experience. I guess that's both a long-term and a short-term thing. So you have to keep reminding people what we have in common. Quote those statistics. Quote the fact that 80% of us in the country want sensible gun reform. Quote the fact that 60% of the country are in support of a single-payer Medicare for all system. That the majority of the country wants these things.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of the best that I can do, and maybe tell them to stop, turning into Fox and CNN. Watch something independent. Go and look for these things yourself. Watch something progressive, and if you want, watch something conservative, and see what they're talking about. Because a lot of the times they're saying, like, why don't our politicians work for us? So we're complaining about the same things.
Right, because both parties are bought and paid for.
Right.
Both parties are completely bought and paid. That was the thing that you have to look at. What Trump was very successful at is, he went through the Republican primary. He blew up the Republican Party. He went in there and just talked all kinds of junk and just like these, and that's what people resonated with. Mm-hmm. I didn't like him. He said racist, xenophobic stuff. I don't like his sexist stuff. But I understood that he was able to just go, hey, Jeb, on stage and on a camera, hey, Jeb Bush, 9/11 happened on your old man's watch. It was just like, boof. Like, your dad
like,
brought us into the
Iraq.
I know. It was like, whoa, like, you can't say that. And all these, like, slicked up, focus grouped politicians with their, you know, calculated turns and gesticulations were just like, everyone's like, that's bullshit, you know? It's fascinating. Well,
and I think if you say the things that, you know, nobody was saying at the time, 9/11 did happen under Bush's watch. What happened? You know, did that make the country safer? No, not really. And that was under a conservative president. Guess what happened under his watch too? We had deregulation of our banks, right? Well, that was under Clinton, and then, you know, so on and so forth. But and then what happened? Now we're all hurting for jobs. We have increased student, you know, loan debt. We've got all of these financial issues that we're having to struggle through, where we're all working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. That's unacceptable in the richest nation in the world. And that really resonates with people. Like, yeah, I would love to see my family, you know. I'm tired of working 80 hours a week. You know, that's not a high standard of living considering how rich the nation is.
Yeah, where the wealth inequity just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it's like the billionaire class is you know, reaping record profits while the middle class is completely getting decimated, and we don't have much of one. And it's unbelievable at every turn. I mean, where I live, the rents are so big, people are moving out of state. If you have a minimum wage job and you work 40 hours a week, you can't pay your bills in any state. There's not one single state where the cost of living and the minimum wage line up for 40 hours a week. And that's appalling in this country. And
it is.
This country could be a utopia. Could be a utopia. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So, well, I very much appreciate your time, and would love to have you back on the show.
Yeah, anytime.
It's cool. Thanks for joining us. My name's Graham Melvin. This is Amanda Cummings. Check out her show and like and subscribe and all that YouTube-y stuff. All right. Thank you, guys.